War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, condensed for those who have no patience to read. In the year 1805, Russia buzzed with tension as Napoleon's army advanced across Europe. Amid this, the grand city of St. Petersburg held lavish parties, where the Russian nobility spoke of war as if it were a distant storm. One such evening, Pierre Bezukhov, a young, awkward nobleman, stood awkwardly in a corner overshadowed by the glittering guests. Pierre was the illegitimate son of a count, and although good-hearted he was often unsure of himself in the noble circles. "Pierre, you're a rich man now," his friend Prince Andrei Bolkonsky said, slapping his back lightly. Andrei was different from Pierre, calm, serious, and disillusioned by the life of the nobility. Pierre smiled faintly. "I don't know what to do with it all," he replied. His father had just passed away, leaving him a vast fortune and a title, yet Pierre felt more lost than ever. Andrei, however, was consumed by other thoughts. "I'm leaving for the army, Pierre. This life," he gestured to the room full of chattering aristocrats, "it's meaningless. Maybe the battlefield will bring clarity." The idea of war was distant to Pierre, but to Andrei it was a desperate search for purpose. He left soon after, leaving behind his beautiful and delicate wife Liza, who was expecting their first child. At the Rostov estate, the air was filled with excitement. The young Natasha Rostova, full of life and energy, twirled around her family's grand ballroom. She was the picture of youthful innocence, her dark eyes sparkling with joy as she entertained her brother Nikolai and their cousin Sonia. "I can't wait to go to St. Petersburg," Natasha exclaimed, dreaming of grand balls and romance. She was only 16, but her heart was already full of dreams and passions. Her brother Nikolai, older and more serious, smiled at her. "Someday, little one. But first I must fight for Russia. I've enlisted in the cavalry," he said proudly, knowing he was leaving soon for the front lines. Natasha's heart swelled with pride, but fear lingered behind her smile. War seemed like a grand adventure to her, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something dark lay ahead. On the battlefield, Prince Andrei found neither glory nor purpose. The sight of wounded soldiers and the chaos of war slowly stripped away his ideals. During the Battle of Austerlitz, one of Napoleon's major victories, Andrei was struck by the sheer brutality of war. As he lay on the battlefield, gravely wounded, staring up at the vast sky, his thoughts were not of honor, but of home. "What a beautiful sky," he thought, feeling strangely detached from his pain. It was in these moments that he realized how small his ambitions had been, and how little glory truly mattered. Andrei was found and brought back to his estate, where his wife Liza was in labor. But tragedy struck as Liza died, giving birth to their son. Andrei, heartbroken and disillusioned, retreated into himself, even as his young son became his only light in a darkened world. Meanwhile, in St. Petersburg, Pierre Bezukhov was now one of the richest men in Russia, but his wealth brought him no happiness. He found himself trapped in a marriage to the beautiful yet cunning Helene, a woman more interested in his fortune than his heart. Disillusioned, Pierre began searching for meaning in strange places. He joined the Freemasons, hoping to find spiritual guidance and a sense of purpose. But even in this secret society, he felt as lost as ever. His friendship with Andrei was one of the few things that anchored him, though they saw each other rarely. Natasha Rostova, now a young woman, was swept up in the dazzling world of society in Moscow. At a grand ball, she caught the eye of Prince Andrei, who had returned to society after years of mourning. Natasha, with her youthful charm and energy, breathed new life into him. They fell in love, and Andrei asked for her hand in marriage. But fate had other plans. While Andrei was away arranging their marriage, Natasha was seduced by the dashing but deceitful Anatole Kuragin, Helene's brother. Enchanted by Anatole's charm and wild spirit, Natasha broke off her engagement to Andrei, a decision that shattered her family and her own heart. When the truth about Anatole's intentions was revealed, he was already married. Natasha was left devastated. She fell into a deep despair, regretting her impulsiveness. The once lively and innocent girl now seemed lost, weighed down by shame and heartbreak. As Napoleon's army marched into Russia, the war became real for everyone. Moscow was abandoned, and as the French troops entered the city, they found it empty and burning. The Rostovs fled their home, joining the sea of refugees. Pierre, now filled with a reckless desire to make sense of his life, stayed behind in Moscow, wandering the streets as fires blazed around him. He had strange ideas of assassinating Napoleon, but was eventually captured by the French army as they occupied the city. During his imprisonment, Pierre's view of the world changed. He met a simple peasant named Platon Karataev, whose kindness and peaceful acceptance of life deeply affected Pierre. For the first time, Pierre began to see that happiness did not come from wealth or status, but from within. As winter set in, Napoleon's army, unprepared for the harsh Russian cold, began to retreat. Prince Andrei, having returned to the battlefield, was gravely wounded once again. He was brought to a hospital where, by chance, he was reunited with Natasha. Natasha, overwhelmed with guilt and still in love with Andrei, nursed him through his final days. In their last moments together, they found peace and forgiveness, and Andrei passed away in her arms. The war came to an end and Russia slowly began to rebuild. Pierre, having survived both his imprisonment and the war, returned to his old life with a new perspective. He divorced Helene and reconnected with Natasha, who had grown into a strong and compassionate woman through her trials. In time, Pierre and Natasha married, finding happiness not in the grand ideals of war or wealth, but in the quiet, everyday moments of life. Together they built a family, surrounded by friends who had endured the same hardships and found the same truths, that love, forgiveness, and peace were the true victories in life. And so, though war had brought destruction, it also brought new beginnings. The lives of Pierre, Natasha, Andrei, and all those around them intertwined in a grand story of love, loss, and the search for meaning, just as real and complex as the times they lived in. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, condensed for those who have no patience to read.